Section 13 of Library of the World's Best Literature, Ancient and Modern, Volume 9. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Dion Gines, Salt Lake City, Utah. Library of the World's Best Literature, Ancient and Modern, Volume 9, Section 13, Selected Works by Lord Chesterfield, 1694 to 1773. As the best representative of a creditable type among English noblemen in the reign of George II, an accomplished courtier, a diplomatic statesman worthy of reliance on occasions of emergency, a scholar, and a patron of literature, Philip Dormer Stanhope, 4th Earl of Chesterfield, occupied a prominent place in the history of his country for more than 40 years. He was the eldest son of Philip, 3rd Earl, and was born at London in 1694. Most of his boyhood was spent under the care of his grandmother, the Marchioness of Halifax. When 18, he was entered at Trinity College, Cambridge, and became an excellent classical scholar. The principal events in his public career were his election to Parliament in his 21st year, his appointment as captain of the Yeomen of the Guard in return for a political vote, his selection for special service as ambassador to The Hague after his succession to the family title, his appointment as Lord High Steward with the Garter as a reward for his success in Holland, his expulsion from that position by Horace Walpole for political disobedience in opposing an excise bill, his second successful mission to The Hague, his selection as a reward for the responsible post of Viceroy in Ireland, and subsequently his resignation and acceptance of office as Secretary of State, this latter appointment being taken when the Earl had reached his 50th year. Chesterfield was first a warm friend, then a bitter enemy of Horace Walpole. He also antagonized George II, but that monarch finally succumbed to diplomatic treatment at his hands, and offered his former antagonist a dukedom, which was courteously declined. In his 58th year, partial deafness caused him to withdraw almost wholly from public affairs. In diplomacy, his successful missions to The Hague made him strong with officials in power. His ability as a statesman was shown to great advantage in a firm yet popular administration of Irish affairs during a critical period in Irish history. As a patron of literature, Dr. Samuel Johnson deemed him a distinct failure, and expressed this opinion forcibly to that effect in his celebrated letter. His literary reputation rests chiefly on letters addressed to his natural son Philip, who died in his 36th year, greatly to his father's disappointment, he having looked forward to a great career for the young man. His letters of counsel and advice were to that end. Oddly, they left the recipient still shy, awkward, tactless, and immature. These epistles, not intended for public perusal, were subsequently printed in book form. The Earl of Chesterfield died in 1773. 4 years after his death, miscellaneous works were published in 2 volumes, also Characters, The Art of Pleasing, and Letters to his Heir, appeared 10 years from the date of his decease, and this was followed a few months later by Memoirs of Asiaticus. From Letters to his Son, concerning Manners. There is a bienséance with regard to people of the lowest degree. A gentleman observes it with his footman, even with the beggar in the street. He considers them as objects of compassion, not of insult. He speaks to neither d'un ton brusque, but corrects the one coolly, and refuses the other with humanity. There is no one occasion in the world in which le ton brusque is becoming a gentleman. In short, les bienséances are another word for manners, and extend to every part of life. They are propriety. The graces should attend in order to complete them. The graces enable us to do genteelly and pleasingly what les bienséances require to be done at all. The latter are an obligation upon every man. The former are an infinite advantage and ornament to any man. The control of one's countenance. People unused to the world have babbling countenances, and are unskilful enough to show what they have sense enough not to tell. In the course of the world, a man must very often put on an easy, frank countenance, upon very disagreeable occasions. He must seem pleased when he is very much otherwise. He must be able to accost and receive with smiles those whom he would much rather meet with swords. In courts, he must not turn himself inside out. All this may, nay, must be done without falsehood and treachery, for it must go no further than politeness and manners, and must stop short of assurances and professions of simulated friendship. Good manners to those one does not love are no more a breach of truth than your humble servant at the bottom of a challenge is. They are universally agreed upon and understood to be things of course. They are necessary guards of the decency and peace of society. They must only act defensively, and then not with arms poisoned with perfidy. Truth, but not the whole truth, must be the invariable principle of every man who hath either religion, honour, or prudence. Dress as an index to character. I cannot help forming some opinion of a man's sense and character from his dress, and I believe most people do as well as myself. Any affectation whatsoever in dress implies in my mind a flaw in the understanding. A man of sense carefully avoids any particular character in his dress. He is accurately clean for his own sake, but all the rest is for other people's. He dresses as well, and in the same manner, as the people of sense and fashion of the place where he is. If he dresses better, as he thinks, that is, more than they, he is a fop. If he dresses worse, he is unpardonably negligent. But of the two, I would rather have a young fellow too much than too little dressed. The excess on that side will wear off with a little age and reflection. But if he is negligent at 20, he will be a sloven at 40, and stink at 50 years old. Dress yourself fine where others are fine, and plain where others are plain. But take care always that your clothes are well made and fit you, for otherwise they will give you a very awkward air. When you are once well dressed for the day, think no more of it afterwards, and without any stiffness or fear of discomposing that dress, let all your motions be as easy and natural as if you had no clothes on at all. Some remarks on good breeding. A friend of yours and mine has justly defined good breeding to be the result of much good sense, some good nature, and a little self-denial for the sake of others, and with a view to obtain the same indulgence from them. Taking this for granted, as I think it cannot be disputed, it is astonishing to me that anybody who had good sense and good nature, and I believe you have both, can essentially fail in good breeding. As to the modes of it, indeed, they vary according to persons, places, and circumstances, and are only to be acquired by observation and experience. But the substance of it is everywhere and eternally the same. Good manners are to particular societies what good morals are to society in general, their cement and their security. And as laws are enacted to enforce good morals, or at least to prevent the ill effects of bad ones, so there are certain rules of civility, universally implied and received, to enforce good manners and punish bad ones. And indeed, there seems to me to be less difference, both between the crimes and punishments, than at first one would imagine. Mutual complaisances, attentions, and sacrifices of little conveniences are as natural an implied compact between civilized people as protection and obedience are between kings and subjects. Whoever in either case violates that compact justly forfeits all advantages arising from it. For my own part, I really think that next to the consciousness of doing a good action, that of doing a civil one is the most pleasing, and the epithet which I should covet the most, next to that of Aristides, would be that of well-bred. The choice of a vocation, from miscellaneous works. It is very certain that no man is fit for everything, but it is almost as certain, too, that there is scarce any one man who is not fit for something, which something nature plainly points out to him by giving him a tendency and propensity to it. I look upon common sense to be to the mind what conscience is to the heart, the faithful and constant monitor of what is right or wrong. And I am convinced that no man commits either a crime or a folly but against the manifest and sensible representation of the one or the other. Every man finds in himself, either from nature or education, for they are hard to distinguish, a peculiar bent and disposition to some particular character, and his struggling against it is the fruitless and endless labor of Sisyphus. Let him follow and cultivate that vocation. He will succeed in it, and be considerable in one way at least. Whereas, if he departs from it, he will at best be inconsiderable, probably ridiculous. End of section 13.